Northeast Tonight, brought to you by Oil India Limited, conquering newer horizons.
Hello and welcome to Notice Tonight, the show that decodes the region. The Sarbananda Sonowal government's last budget before the 2021 Assembly elections, presented by Finance Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma last week, is definitely pro-poor. Now, critics of the BJP-led government like the Congress and others have been saying it is a populist budget ahead of the elections. The fact is, any government would make it an Aam Aadmi friendly budget if there is an election round the corner. That is not surprising in the least. The question to ask perhaps is whether Assam is on the right track insofar as battling poverty is concerned. According to Niti Aayog figures, 31.98% of Assam's 32 million people are living below the poverty line. The national average of BPL people is actually 21.92%. In fact, after Manipur and Arunachal, Assam has the highest population of BPL people in the northeast. 10 years ago, the number of people in Assam below poverty line was 37.9%. Is this a good or a fair improvement in poverty reduction? That is the key question. Then if we look at the global multidimensional poverty index for 2018, Assam stands at 0.160, whereas the national average is 0.121. Here again, Assam stands the poorest in the northeast. In the latest state budget, the focus is on giving succor to the poor. 55,000 new recruitment is going to take place in the state government. Rupees 870 crore to be spent on free rice during the year, textbook assistance to students, government to pay hostel mess dues, free admission, 30 units of power free for domestic users, 50,000 rupees gratuity to tea garden workers upon retirement, wage compensation to pregnant women from tea garden community, revolving fund of rupees 25,000 and rupees 10,000 for female SSGs, rupees 50,000 to each SHG availing or eligible to avail bank loans benefiting 1 lakh plus SHGs. Scooters for Jivika Sakshis along with monthly allowance of rupees 500 to fill petrol in the scooties and so on. To discuss whether the battle against poverty in Assam is going to be tough or easy, I am joined by Dr. M.P. Besbarua, Professor of Economics at Guwahati University. Dr. Sriparna Barua, Head Center for Industrial Extension at the Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship. Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta, also from Guwahati University. Assam BJP spokesman Rupam Goswami and political analyst Swapnanil Barua. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Northeast Tonight. I'd like to go straight to you, Dr. M.P. Besbarua. We have seen the budget recently, but more than that, is Assam on track as far as battling poverty is concerned? You can take the indicators from the current budget. You can also refer to the Assam Human Development Report 2014, which was published in 2018 and so on. And besides, you have your own research. So what is your stand on that? Is Assam on track as far as tackling poverty is concerned?
It's a very good question and tough one to answer, of course. And actually, all over the India, the poverty we have been able to reduce the number of people living below the poverty line, but of course not at the rate at which you would like it to go down. In Assam, we have been slightly lagging behind compared to the other parts of India. And if you look at the Assamese, the population in Assam, you'll find that the poverty is particularly sort of, concentrated among certain communities and rural areas, of course.
Right.
Okay. And so I think some of the steps which have been proposed here in the budget, for instance, that can give a lot of relief, that can give us some time for us to sort of, try and sort out poverty in the state. Yeah. But however, in the long run, if you really want to reduce poverty, you must be able to we must be able to help people to increase their access to income earning capital. That's slightly technical, but that can come from a variety of things. You can physical assets or financial assets or human resource in the form of education and all that. This will enable the masses to sort of basically earn their own thing.
Okay. Let me go to you, Dr. Akhil Ranjan Datta. Everybody says that the recent budget is a populist budget, so on and so forth. But don't you think as long as it helps the poor people, don't you think that is the basic objective of the government, to help the poor? Or do you have a different take in that? My question, of course, the broader question which I'm asking is Assam on the road to tackle poverty? Are you happy with the steps?
Yeah. Let me explain it with a little bit analytical perspective. When you talk about poverty or reduction of poverty, there are two ways to do. One, you may help the poor and make them chronically dependent on the government. What the government has been doing for it is not happening only to the state government of Assam, it has been even happening to the government of India as a whole. We have, on the one hand, we have the market economy, on the other hand, we have these populist budgets. Now, the populist budgets has been trying to contain the discontents among people by offering the soaps, by offering the kind of assistance that has been that those have been assured through the budgets. But by doing that, the budget has also been making the people chronically dependent on the government. If you look at, you have mentioned 2014 Assam Human Development Report, and it has very categorically mentioned one thing, that the assets of production, if you think in terms of reducing poverty, one of the important objectives has to ensure that people are equipped with assets of production. Assets, capital assets, or whatever you call. Professor M.P. Besbora mentioned it. Now, what the government has been doing, they have been trying to give benefits to the people, but through that, people are also becoming chronically dependent on the government. Therefore, this is not a sustainable way of reducing poverty.
Okay, we will deal with that. Sriparna Barua, women constitute almost 50% of the population. That is, which a huge chunk of the population, half and half. Now the question is that in every budget, we are not discussing only the budget in today's discussion. Let me be very clear about that. In every budget or every government programs, a lot of emphasis is given on women. Even this time around, the self-help group movement has been one of the big focus of the present government. My question to you, we are talking about reducing poverty. We are talking, say, in 10 years ago, 37% of the population in Assam was below the poverty line. Today, it is 32%. 31.98 is 32%. There is a 5% improvement. Now, are you satisfied? Are you a satisfied person? And do you think the women section can do wonders if it is put on track in a very systematic manner rather than giving sops to here and there? What is your take? How do you look at it?
Absolutely. A systematic manner of how you're going to approach empowerment of women, economic empowerment of women is extremely important, because if you look at what has been attempted in this budget and also in the earlier budget, we will find that a lot of emphasis given on promoting SHGs. Now we are talking about giving a revolving fund, then we are giving more SOPs. But what actually has been happening? Have we ever tried to look at what has been the impact of SOPs given so far? What are these SHGs? How much of economic activity has been generated through SHGs? That's the most pertinent question, because we find that it's a known fact, because we work in the field. We find what happens to the funds which the SHGs get. They basically again reroute it by giving small loans to the others, and they're using it for consumption. That's a reality. How much of it is actually used for economic activities? So that without doing that assessment, which we keep on giving one SOP after the other, what happens is again we are creating another layer of dependence. So they are basically spending things on consumption and education or whatever, and then so the consumption increases, but again the dependence again increases. So
Increasing dependency is, two of the panelists have talked about it. I'll come for a BJP response at the end as usual. Now, Swapnil Barua, you have been an administrator. If we look at the Assam Human Development Report of 2014, Swapnil Barua, it also mentions a very interesting part. It says that unequal distribution of land holdings, unequal land holdings in the state is one of the reasons the Assam Human Development Report of 2014, which was of course published in 2018, says as one of the reasons for poverty in the state, apart from, of course, the usual things like, lack of private sector employment, lack of industrialization, and so on. What has been your experience? Do you agree that how is land holding linked? Can you explain to the viewers really?
Well, Wasbir, it's very simple. We have 67% of our farmer population engaged in agriculture.
Right.
I mean, more than 70%.
More than 70%, yes.
Of which 67% have holdings of less than 6 bighas. Now, if you have a holding of 6 bighas, you can only expect an income of, at current prices, current market prices, of around 4,000 rupees a month. Now, this 4,000 rupees a month is definitely not going to make any impact on poverty. And second thing about the land holdings is that only about 40% of the land is used for double cropping. So even if 4,000 goes to 8,000, there won't be a substantial dent in the poverty levels. The third factor in the agriculture sector is that the farmer gets only 20% of the price of the final price of the produce in the market, whereas that should have been in the region of 60 to 70%. So this land holding does not allow you for any commercialization of agriculture, as a result of which it has just been going on and disguised employment is happening.
Now, another thing, Swapnil Barua, is that, again, I'm referring to the Assam Human Development Report 2014. Now, what it says is that, the top 80% of the people, means economically affluent people, they hold the largest chunk of the land. The people economically backward, people who are less economically sound, they hold a lesser number of land holdings. So that means totally inequitable distribution of wealth. So is that one of the reasons for continued poverty?
Can I tell you, I think, let me go to my figures a bit. I think that should clarify the problem a bit. The less than 6 bighas is 67%, 6 to 12 bighas is 18 to 25%, 12 to 24 bighas is just only 10%, and 24 to 60% is, which is actually the...
So what is the conclusion out of this?
The conclusion is that the concentration of landholding on the top is not really correct. Not much. But most of the land is held by so poor people that really they can't do anything. It's like the Namibian experience, I'll tell you. I think I should share it with my thing. Is that when Mugabe took over all the land of the white people and gave it to the black people. Now the black people took over the land, but they didn't have any money even to buy the seeds, talk about anything else. So ultimately the country landed up with a famine.
They couldn't utilize the land.
Wasbir, I'd like to come in here.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing, We in Assam, we don't have enough land to be redistributed. All right. Now what is actually needed, and NITI Aayog has actually already talked about this, is that we need to sort of have a relook in the tenancy laws. What's happening in fact is that Swapnil said 6 bighas. In fact, people are having 3 bighas, 4 bighas,
even less than that.
Even less than that.
Which are not actually viable at all.
Not viable.
Now, you can't lease them out also, because if you lease out for 3 years, you may lose your land. So you need to change the
tenancy laws, the land laws,
so that leasing in and leasing out become easy. In that case, what happens? The marginal farmers can give their land for leasing, and they come out for a different profession, non-farm and all that.
Mechanization will only be possible if you have about 20 bighas.
And those who will be left out, they can actually, lease in and they can become viable.
All right.
So
it's very interesting discussion.
No, this has not been mentioned in anywhere in Assam discussed. I'm thankful that this is brought up, and I hope the government of Assam will have a look into it. And NITI Aayog is already talking about it.
Okay, so this discussion is on very interesting lines, and before we develop it and take it forward, Rupam Goswami, the basic question, what is the debate today? We are asking this question whether Assam is on track as far as the poverty battle as far as the fight against poverty is concerned. 32% of the population is still below poverty line. 10 years ago, it was 37%. There has been some improvement in the last 10 years, out of which 4 years were run by your government. Now, what is your focus? Are you a happy man? How would you like to move ahead?
And definitely, I'm not happy because it's a long way to go.
Yeah.
Because since long, Assam's, the mentality of the Assamese mainstream people are service-oriented. They were never entrepreneurs. That is the biggest problem which we faced in that time. So that is the focus point where we should focus. Because prior to the independence, Assamese are basically based on the agriculture only. Even after that, because of the lots of revolutions of some way or the other, people are not interested. The youth, they are not interested for plowing their lands, even with the modern equipments also. So everyone's now into an easy money. That is the biggest.
So even double
problem.
cropping, more than one cropping is also not happening that
Yes,
much.
yes, not even
No,
the
it's
one
not
cropping is
happening at
also
all,
not
no.
happening through the land, all the lands. That is much more important.
So Akhilanjan Datta, how do we bring the BPL population further down? There is no mechanized farming, there is no double cropping,
I'm so sorry to intervene. This is actually completely a misinformation. I'm sorry to say that. You go to the village, everybody is now tilling their lands with a power tiller or something. Now this has become possible because you don't have to buy one. You can hire one.
You can hire one, but are we at a level, considering that 70% of our people are agrarian, we are an agrarian state, Besbarua, considering that 70% of our people, of our population are farmers into farming, whether they are their own farming or whether they are farm workers, that's a different issue. But you are saying that we can hire power tillers and so on, but what is our level compared to, say, Haryana or Punjab, for example?
No, we don't require that kind of mechanization because our farms already have seen the high level of farmers are, having 30 bighas or something, which is in fact
nothing,
just 4 or 5 hectares or something like that. So we don't require that kind of mechanization. What we require, what Sapnali has mentioned, let farmers get into things like high value crops so that the value chain takes care of this. These are some of the things.
And again, the marketing has to be good enough. Realization of the farmer.
Absolutely,
now let us say the same thing is happening in Punjab. How is Punjab prospering doing paddy while Assam is not? Because what happens is that he spends about 700 rupees per quintal, whereas in Assam we spend about 1,000 rupees a quintal. Spending 700 rupees a quintal, he gets 1,200 rupees as minimum support price right from his farm gate.
Exactly.
Which does not happen. We have
this value chain.
So we have to eliminate the middleman. We have to give right price to the farmers.
Farmers have to definitely get about 60% of the market price of the thing.
Let me quickly go to Dr. Akhilanjan Datta. Akhilanjan Datta, a lot of people are saying that we have also raised this question whether agriculture should be made into an industry, whether there lies the catch. And how do we go about doing that? Is it possible? Is it tall talk? We have been hearing about it for the last 20 years.
Let me confess in the very beginning that I am not a economist, or I do not have specialized knowledge on all these issues that we have been talking about. But I come from a very, very backward region of the country, state, very remote area. And whenever I go back, I come back with a lot of depression. And one important thing that Sripana Borua has mentioned, that economic activities are not taking place. And we have to take it very seriously. It is not only about mechanization. Yes, lot of mechanization is happening even in the remote areas. But mechanization cannot alone bring about prosperity and economic activities. It has lot of other important dimensions. For example, what is happening to the irrigation? What is happening to the other issues like getting adequate seats at the appropriate point.
Inputs.
And what is happening, and that is very, very important, which has been mentioned both by Professor MP Besbarua and Sapnali Borua, what is happening to MSP, minimum support price. If you go to even vegetable production, cabbage production, for example, lot of entrepreneurship has come about, but at the end point, look at Gwalpara, for example, lot of tomato production is taking place.
Yeah.
And you know, at the peak of the marketing season, the price of tomato goes down to ₹1 and cost of production is ₹2. And how do you think about economic prosperity and economic activity
absolutely.
if these important dimensions are not being taken into account?
Let me ask the BJP spokesman one thing. You know, let us be very clear on one thing, that we have one of the most dynamic finance ministers in a long time in the form of Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma. Now the point is, Rupam Goswami, it's very easy to criticize a government, whatever party it is. That is the easiest thing to do. Now my point is, a question which I am going to ask you is that what are the biggest challenges that your party, or for that matter your government, has listed? What are the major challenges? What that is obstructing you from reducing poverty? What is holding you back in your fight against poverty? What are the main problems?
Look, the main thing, we have to give inputs to the agriculture. Like Akhil Ranjan said very well, that like the seeds and all other your irrigations, like other supports, it's very important. Also, it is also very important to have a market. That we don't have a market in Assam. It is very unfortunate that after so many years of independence, we could not we could not have a good markets in the places. Like in other states, you will have good mandis. But in Assam, we don't have any sort of mandi.
Agriculture Marketing Board has not been functional.
Yes, not at all functional. So that is the main challenge, and I don't know why.
And what about the quality of seeds? That is also the key, isn't it?
Actually, I'm very much surprised that from the very beginning, we have not given much importance in the agriculture department. It is even in the veterinary department also. We are importing all the goat meat or pork meat or whatever, we are importing. Now fish is not importing much, but fish is now locally production has happened. But these two sector, veterinary and agriculture, it's very important, and we have not given.
Can I make a point here?
Yeah.
You know, one thing nice about the current thinking of the government is that they have identified this 27 lakh families.
Exactly.
This 27 lakh families means 30% of the population, that is the BPL population. And I think the thinking is now gradually becoming very clear to the mind of the government as to how to proceed on. The difficulty about the government of Assam is that it doesn't have economists in the bureaucracy. Now, I think Himanshu Shekhar Das was the last.
But what prevents them from taking the views and opinion of the economists?
Political compulsions have not been able to address the issues so far as the Transformation Council also is not very technical. It is rather more
very disappointing.
We'll go into all of that. Now, Sripurna Barua, what according to you as holding back? I mean, I'm sure you would love that 70 years or plus after independence, you would have definitely expected Assam to be much more, an economically developed state, but that is not happening. 32% of the people are still below the poverty line, whereas the national average is 21%. My question is, what do you think, that same question which I asked Rupam Goswami, what do you, according to you, are 2 to 3 main reasons that is retarding growth and development in the state? And that ultimately leads to tackling poverty.
See, Wasbir, since I'm involved in enterprise creation, I look at it only from enterprise creation at the moment, and I find that there is no strategy for enterprise creation. There's absolutely no strategy for enterprise creation, be it agri-sector, be it handloom sector, be it any other sector. You look at the current budget. Even when we are trying to think about creating enterprises, we are just allotting funds. We are not looking at, does entrepreneurship happen by just allotting funds and just saying that groups will be formed and you are going to have enterprises. It doesn't happen like that. Entrepreneurship.
Is it the... Before you talk, Dr. MP Besboro, I'm coming to you, Rupam. Is it the responsibility of the state government to create industries?
No, I think, in agriculture also, it's more or less the same thing. We need to go beyond the budget. It's not in the budget that you can do. You see, we have to have the systems in place. If she talks about enterprise, so they are actually, the people who has a project, people who have a good project, that the funding should be available. And then the marketing linkages should be available. Coming back to agriculture, you're talking of seeds, you're talking of various things. It's not that the government should be going distributing seeds. There has to be a system in place, which is a competitive, which is not a monopoly. Like you mentioned, the middleman. Middleman is much maligned person. Actually, if you have
He's
several
necessary.
middlemen, you have competitions, you have a cooperative to if you go to Garo Hills, for instance, they have given a run for the money to the middleman because there are several competitors.
No, before I'll go for a break, but very quickly, 20 seconds to you, Dr. Akhilanjan Datta. Whose responsibility is it to set up industries? Is it the private sector, the role of the government we know to create a congenial atmosphere, make things easy, single window we have been hearing for donkey's years? So, Akhilanjan Datta, what do you think? Very quickly.
Whether it is, whether it is the responsibility of the private sector to set up industries or it is the responsibility of the government to set up industries will ultimately be dependent, government will be accountable. Government has to ensure, government has to facilitate to set up industries whether by the private sector or by the public sector. You cannot do away with the responsibility of the government at this front.
Okay.
Wasbir, can I just make a point?
Rupam,
One point is that
very quickly.
The whole government machinery is production oriented.
Okay.
What has happened is that there is nobody to tell you about the market. The agriculture department does not know what is the market. The industries department doesn't know, because I have worked in those departments, and now as a small time farmer I am trying to fix this problem.
There is a coordination issue.
The orientation of the government has not changed.
The convergence. Yes, Rupam, 20 seconds before we can develop it a little later.
Look, entrepreneurs are born. You cannot create entrepreneurs. I am an entrepreneur. I am a first generation businessman. I have lots of experiences. So entrepreneurs are born, you have to fight. Government by giving subsidies or by giving support can't do anything. You have to change the mindset of the people. The mindset of the people, in the very beginning I said that we have a mindset of service oriented, not an entrepreneur. That is very much
so
more important.
need to tackle the mindset, create a climate for entrepreneurship in the state. On that note, I go for a short break. Don't go away. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Dr. Akhilanjan Datta, you see, a lot of people say that there has to be a congenial climate for investment. There should be a congenial climate for industrialization. But if you remember, a couple of years ago, the All Assam Students Union, they went to Mumbai. They met India Incorporated. They met a lot of corporate leaders. And they said, please come and invest in Assam. We will make sure that you don't get any kind of unnecessary pressure. Even then, nobody has come. Forget about the government. Government is every day, every government has been trying to bring in industrialization because their future success depends on industry. So every government is trying. The present government has done this Assam Investment Summit. There was a lot of interest generated. But at the end of the day, how long can we wait for big industrial or big business houses to come and open shop in Assam?
I don't think that by inviting the big industries or big corporates, you can generate economic activities that will finally be beneficial, finally benefit the rural poor or the poverty-stricken people that we have been talking about. The big industries will help in creating certain amount of employment opportunities, but big industries or big corporates will also emphasize on concentration of resources or accumulation of profit. Thereby, it is not going to help the rural poor or the poverty-stricken people that we have been talking about. Therefore, we need to investigate what is the problem all about. My understanding is this, and if we read the budget speech, for example, it has become an amalgamation of the schemes being implemented by different departments. it has become so long, 130 pages, 140 pages, 150 pages sometime. And if you look into the budget speech, it is basically talking about which department will be having what kind of schemes and what benefits will be given to the different sections of the society. The problem lies in identifying the diseases, identifying the challenges. If you go through the budget,
I'll come back to you.
Finance Minister has
identifying the challenges, that is the point. Now MP Besbarua, big industry. Do you think big industry or industrialization really doesn't hold the key? We have to talk at the small and medium sector.
See, it's pointless going and asking, Ambani's, Adani's and also come.
Exactly.
If the profitable, the opportunity for profit ventures was there, they would have come on their own. The Tatas have gardens, we all know about it, right? So, I mean, it's not an issue of inviting them. If the profitable ventures were here, they would have definitely come. Now, in case we don't have, space for large, big industries, which actually our former Prime Minister Torun Gogoi actually once said, the big industry has no scope. Yeah, Chief Minister. Now, MSME probably has. I mean, Sriparna will be in a better position to talk you through about that. So, I mean, basically this exercise of going and inviting people, I think it's pointless. They're wasting our money.
Pointless. Okay, that is what you think. Now, Swapnil Barua, that means that means what I am gathering from the discussion so far is that we have to actually rather concentrate on our strong points. What are our strong points? Our strong points is agriculture and perhaps tourism, and both are not industries, not being declared as industries, by the way. And one good thing in the current budget is, of course, the Assam government deciding to do away with agriculture income tax for 3 years. That is going to help the tea industry a lot. Now, do you agree that agriculture and tourism, which are our strong points, and for whatever strange reason, that has been not declared as industries so far by anyone?
Well, there is no option. So far, since we don't have industries, we have to rely on agriculture, what our people are doing.
That is our strength.
That is our strength.
What about tourism?
But tourism definitely has a scope, and I think the government is slightly thinking, but not enough as yet. What I feel is the constraint of the budget, because what has happened is that the infrastructure development which you need, which, normally, as I think whether Madhurya would agree with me or not, is that we need for another 5 years to spend about 90% of our budget in infrastructure development. But it is happening contrary now. We are only spending about 10% of our budget in infrastructure, and because there are no roads, there are no warehouses, there are no cold chains in places, there is no marketing infrastructure, as a result of which the produce is going to waste, which we have seen so far.
My point is slightly different. I'll not be wrong. First thing is that, infrastructure, if you look at this budget actually, I mean, instead of speech, if you focus on the last part of the budget, what you find actually is that, this fiscal, he had a fiscal space, because fiscal deficit was below 2% and all that. So he has actually very smartly maneuvered to get fund from externally aided projects, for which you require 10% to be contributed by the state. And this fund actually comes as a grant from the central government. It's a loan for the central government.
1% or something.
And those money actually will not be for any other soaps or something. So those, I believe, will be for roads and all that kind of thing. And if you look at the last few years, actually roads and all that's come up. Now, you mentioned the cold storage. Many cold storage chain have come out, but these are not being utilized by the farmers. There's a missing link.
The cost is very high.
There's a missing link in terms of the size of the cold chains which have come up actually. So there, at least there's been no sort of an analysis of the type of pre-processing units which are required. So agriculture is always looked as agriculture, but when you can start processing and start looking at it as an industry, I think that's where the missing link is, because so many enterprises can have.
My experience is that the locational disadvantage of the thing, we have a cold storage somewhere near Sonapur, but there are no producing centers nearby.
But there could be a lot of,
we have a food processing park.
There could be a lot of low-cost pre-processing centers. There could be a lot of.
But there is one in Hingimari where a lot of vegetables are produced, but it's not used, But so we have to find out the missing links.
So now let me take this to Rupam Goswami. Rupam Goswami, do you think that you have to be on a mission mode, at least in sectors like agriculture and tourism? Yes. And why can't we have a holistic approach? Like you were saying that you have a cold storage, but it is away from the production center. Somebody must have done it earlier. So you have to perhaps start afresh And what have you been doing in the last couple of years? A lot of people might like to know, actually.
Yeah, definitely. When we took over in the government, it was lots of challenges are there. We have taken over the government with 20,000 crore deficit. So there are lots of challenges, and I'm really thankful to the Chief Minister and the Finance Minister for taking so much pain. And they have really things going on now, and I think he has taken a very good step. That is the 27 lakhs people, where he will directly, they will transfer
830
rupees.
830 rupees every.
840 rupees.
Yeah.
They will directly, this is just a trial mode. If it succeeds, then definitely, because on an average, the BPL people are getting around 4,000 to 5,000 rupees on an average from the government. And that is very much important, because if you push money in the BPL, then it will come, it will rotate and the economy will go. So that is the main motive. After that only we can think all other things, like it's simultaneously going on. Like, you know, and one more very important is that our agriculture officers should go to the field.
Extension officers.
That is the biggest deficiency.
Then they will realize what are the real problems.
So, Swapnil Barua, what has been your experience? The agriculture extension officers, there is allegations all the time that I'm not generalizing. There will be people who will be definitely doing their job. But by and large, large chunk of the people don't even visit the fields.
As I said, I think this is the biggest, the extension services have been a big failure, if you ask me. And in the field we had tried to push them. And it becomes very difficult, because they have this, gazetted officer mindset. He must sit in an office, he must sit under the fan.
With the file only.
I'll just add one very important thing here, which is extremely important to realize, that in the success of Green Revolution, it's the extension officers, along with the labs, who were the behind the farmers. But what has happened?
Are we missing out?
Give me the 30 seconds. I'd just like to add a very important point. See, after the liberalization process and reforms, then actually extension services collapse. Okay, there is no extension service as such. And the farmers are now left to themselves. Not only themselves, they are depending on the seed sellers, fertilizer sellers, the sellers. So there obviously is going to be a conflict of interest. I'll sell those seeds which I have. I'll recommend more higher doses of fertilizer than what is required. So there is a serious conflict of interest.
And if we want to get out of this middleman thing, another thing, missing link, what I always feel is that we are looking at startups as a totally different segment, but a lot of startups which are solving problems, becoming marketing aggregators. Now they are removing the middleman. They are bringing in IoT, etc. for agriculture. Why are we delineating both and looking at farmers and startups as the other side? So there is it's an integrated thing.
The industrial surplus has to be the source for industries.
So what I think is, while the budget has a lot of provisions for promoting entrepreneurship in terms of allocations which have been made, but connecting the dots is more important. Where exactly
connecting the dots. Now, is there a Madhajo was talking about the labs. Dr. Akhilanjan Datta, lab to land transfer of technology. We have the agriculture universities. We have the Krishi Vigyan Kendras and so on and so forth. Since we are talking about agriculture, it's good. The Assam government has reduced or done away with agriculture income tax for 3 years to boost the agriculture sector. That will benefit the tea industry. But that's a different story. Story is lab to land technology transfer. We have the agriculture universities, and as I said, the Krishi Vigyan Kendras. Are you a happy man? What do they do? We hardly see. They may be doing one or two good things, but where is the mass awareness about what these institutions are doing?
You see, the institutional foundation of the whole economic activities are completely collapsing now. You have the agriculture university. For that matter, you have many other universities. Now, universities have a thought process. For example, there have been a lot of research. For example, our university, even Professor Madhurya Barua and his research scholars have been doing some extensive work at the grassroots, trying to understand what is happening at the grassroots in the economic activities front or in the livelihood and so on and so forth. Now, missing linkages are not confined only among the government departments. As a whole, in the research front and the government, and the laboratory fund and the government, agriculture university and agriculture department, so on and so forth. Even in 1970s and 80s, when we were children and studying in the schools, we at least saw the Gram Sevaks in the field.
Yes.
You know, we had the Gram Sevak quarters and all, and the Gram Sevaks used to go to the field, and they had a contact with the common farmers. And now it is not happening. Forget about the extensions officers. Even Gram Sevaks are not there. Therefore, the institutional collapse of the innovation and activities which have collapsed in a way, and if we cannot revive that, we cannot even think of reviving the economic activities.
Okay. Dr. M.P. Basbora, the same question goes to you. Is there a disconnect somewhere between the institutions, scientific institutions like the agriculture universities and the ground?
There is, obviously, and of course, like what Akhil mentioned, you know, how many times the government actually discusses with us, you know. All of us here are trying to talk about something from our own experience and all that. So these never get into the, you know, filters into the government policy making. I'm not saying they should ask us for something, but at least there has to be some kind of mechanism.
But you have to admit, you know, there is a lot of scope for improvement, Rupam Barua. That interface, the connect between the government and the academia, people who are doing the research, people who are scientists and all, doing with, say, for example, better cropping, better technology, and who are also have a proper knowledge about the market. Do you think there is a lot to be done in this front as well?
No, I think it's really unorganized. The whole sector is not organized. We need to organize the link is.
But that is largely the government's responsibility.
No, not only the government.
Whose responsibility
not
is
only
that?
the government. Like, you know, at the same time, like the farmers, that Gram Sevak, Akhil rightly told about the Gram Sevak. So that is the mindset. You know, what I feel is the mindset.
No, you just cannot go about talking about mindset. It's a question of accountability.
Why cannot?
Wait a minute. Why cannot they are not
cracking the whip?
Because they can get away without doing their job.
No,
That's it.
Sir, let me complete. So actually, things that there is though, like work culture is also another point where we are lacking in among the government officers. That is much more important. People are not giving their time for the farmers. That is very much important, that we have to bring the work culture. Once our Honorable Chief Minister asked everyone to work for 1 or 2 hours more, then everybody was opposing it. So that's kind of mentality you cannot grow, because we have to give a long jump now. If we have to bring up our economy, we have to give long jump. So that's
long jump need of the hour.
Can I make a point here? You know, I have been always stressing that the agriculture portfolio should be kept by the BJP and preferably the Chief Minister.
How does it make a difference?
No, it makes a difference because down the line, if it is held by the senior most, the first among the equals, the Chief Minister, the work happens much better, much faster. And really,
I think that is a very important thing that Swapnil Barua has said. Agriculture must be given top priority. Whether the Chief Minister retains it or he runs it through one of his cabinet colleagues, but the monitoring has to be there, the push has to be there. I think that has to be the government's topmost priority, because 70% of our people are into agriculture. Siparna Barua, your final comments. I'm running short of time. What is the road ahead? How do we tackle poverty in Assam? Are we on the right track?
See, to tackle poverty, number one, we have to have a concerted strategy. It doesn't work in isolation. You're putting a policy here, you have to look at how do we promote clusters. When we talk about agri, are we looking at promoting agri clusters? And then connecting again agricultures along the value chain. So are we doing a concerted strategy for promotion? Just, you know, pieces here, pieces there doesn't work out. Here you're talking about something on, and we're leaving out, while our entire discussion is on that, why we're leaving out something on hugely on handloom, where a lot of women are involved in handloom. So handloom is a sector, again we are saying in this budget that you're going to create model villages out of handloom. Again, it's like a chicken and egg problem. While on the one hand there's a huge demand for handloom, you don't get a supply chain. So how do we solve problems like that?
Lot of things need to be focused, perhaps focused attention is the need of the hour. Swapnil Barua, your final comments.
My final comments are that please teach the people to how to fish, not giving them fish. And secondly, fix a date for getting the people out of the poverty trap and work backwards as to finding out the funds, finding out the training or whatever inputs are required to reach that particular BPL target that will eradicate poverty, or like we had taken, the Prime Minister had taken Swachh Bharat as a fixed date basis, and work back on that. That kind of a situation has to be developed in Assam.
All right. Okay. Dr. Akhil Ranjan Datta, final comments.
I think the bottom-up approach has to be adopted by the government. For example, now Sripurna Bora has mentioned about the handlooms. Look at my own area, Dhokwakhana. Sericulture is one of the very important sources of livelihood, but that has not been given any importance by the government. People have been struggling on their own for livelihood. The government's responsibility is to identify those sources of livelihood on the part of the people and to help them out so that those sources of livelihood become sustainable.
Okay, sustainable livelihood is the key, according to Dr. Akhilanjan Datta. Professor M.P. Besbarua, last one.
Yeah, I'll be slightly off this thing. See, we are talking about industry, agriculture. If we are not able to deliver the missing links and all that, at least we can do one thing. Let us try to give quality education to all sections of population, not necessarily higher education. Go to tea tribes, go to the Muslim immigrant origin, Char areas, tribes, and others also.
Everybody.
Other tribes also. I mean, there are a lot of difficulties of these people. So if we give them education, their human capital is built, and they can probably figure it out, even if the government is not able to figure it out.
Education holds the key, and of course, I must tell that the present government in the state is giving a lot of focus on education, actually. But yes, nothing can be enough, and there is a lot to do. And Rupam Barua, last words to you. Are you sorry, Rupam Goswami, I apologize. Final comments from you.
No, finally, I would like to, this is the first budget where for every scheme there is a date. So that is a very good beginning for Assam, because the finance minister has kept a date for target date for every schemes and every projects that the government has taken in the budget. And number two, really there lots of work has to be done in the tourism and agriculture sector. And I have seen that the government, not only this government, even the previous governments, they are not giving much focus on the agriculture, which is very, very important for any government to give more focus on the agriculture. And we really have to link with the farmers. We have to be in the touch with the farmers, and all the agriculture officer has to be in the field. If they are only with the file, we cannot.
That will not happen.
Agriculture.
All right.
And one more important for the industry sector. The atmosphere of the state is very important. If you keep on doing andolan on the roads,
absolutely,
revolution on the roads, no industry will come up in this sector.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, one common theme emerging out of this discussion is that Agriculture Minister Atul Bora has to pull up his socks and demonstrate the will to transform the agriculture sector in the 1 year that he has before going to the polls. Otherwise, it will be disastrous not only for himself, his party, or for the bigger ally of his party, that is the BJP in the state. On that note, I thank all my panelists for participating in these engaging discussions and the viewers for watching the program. Good night and goodbye.
Northeast Tonight, brought to you by Oil India Limited, conquering newer horizons.